Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Box Office Talk. This is the show where I break down what happened at the box office, see if my predictions for the top 5 are correct, then make predictions for next week's top 5. So let's get right on into it. Last week I predicted that number 1 would be Avatar: The Way of Water, number 2 would be Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, number 3 would be Mithrigan, number 4 would be Missing, and number 5 would be A Man Called Otto, and I only got 2 out of 5 of my predictions right for this weekend because last weekend I made a bold claim that none of the newer releases were going to crack the top 5, and I was actually wrong, but it wasn't for literally any of the movies that I mentioned last weekend. So let's go over what happened in the overall top 10. Number 1 was, of course, Avatar: The Way of Water. Its 7th consecutive weekend, number 1 at the box office. I don't think it'll last next weekend, but hey, this is quite a fucking run, you know what I mean? Made $15 million this weekend, now adding to a domestic total of $620 million. If you're wondering about the domestic stats, it now needs $165 million until it outgrosses the original Avatar film, but it is narrowing in on Titanic, with it just needs $39 million to get there now, which is crazy. I think in the next couple weeks we will be seeing this happen for sure. And as far as the year 2022, it just needs $98 million until it outgrosses Top Gun: Maverick, and then it's officially the highest grossing film of the year 2022. So a little ways to go until then. Who knows if it'll actually maybe even get there. Maybe years down the line when this movie gets re-released, if it even does, we'll see that happen. But for right now, kind of up in the air if it'll get close, But right now on the all-time domestic chart, it has outgrossed Incredibles 2, and it's a couple 100,000 over The Last Jedi, and now it just needs $3 million until it outgrosses the Avengers spot on that list, which is incredible. You know what I mean? Remember do you guys remember 2012 when The Avengers was the biggest movie of the year, one of the biggest movies of all time, the biggest movie of all time? And now just the way things have escalated in the years, now we have Avatar 2 coming out and kicking its ass. That's amazing. Worldwide, it is now at $2,116 million, so it needs $783 million until it outgrosses the original film. But for Titanic, James Cameron's other film, it needs $91 million in order to outgross that one. And then it's only, similar to the domestic numbers, it just needs to get to the first Avatar to be James Cameron's highest grossing film. That's fucking crazy. But the thing about Titanic also is that once it outgrosses Titanic by that 91 million, which I do think will happen, it'll be the number 3 highest grossing film worldwide of all time. So that's kind of where we're at right now. It's about to enter the top 3 highest grossing films ever. It just outgrossed Avengers: Infinity War by $68 million and Star Wars: The Force Awakens by $52 million. Do you remember Star Wars: The Force Awakens? When that movie was the biggest thing of all time, the biggest movie ever, and nothing else can ever top it again. Domestically, probably not, because that's $900 million, $950 million from what I remember. That is the highest grossing film domestically here in the States ever. And Avatar's only at $600 million. So it probably won't get there, unless it gets re-released multiple times and still has that great run, you know what I mean? But time will tell on that one, and it's not looking very likely at the moment, but still, amazing. Avatar fucking 2, and, all that time when The Avengers was out, and when Star Wars: The Force Awakens was out, Avatar 2 was always this fucking thing you can barely see in the distance. Is that movie coming? I don't know. Who cares? Everybody! And that's why it's crushing it. That's amazing. I just can't stop singing this movie's praises. Financially, let's move on to number 2, which is Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, still holding on very well, making $10 million, adding to a domestic total of $140 million. Now, I mentioned last weekend that some of the numbers looked a little lower and it was very confusing and hurting my brain. It looks like now the numbers website, which I use, it looks like it's actually updated and, it looks a lot more right this time. So let's go over what it's actually outgrossed in the last couple weeks. It's made $14 million over B-Movie, and now it needs $3 million until it outgrosses Kung Fu Panda 3 domestically. But I think even more exciting news is that it just needs $9 million more until it outgrosses the first Puss in Boots movie, which that would be really fucking great, because as much as I really enjoy the first Puss in Boots, there's no denying that this movie I found to be more enjoyable and way better in so many different ways. So if this movie, despite it opening really low, can actually go on to, outgross that film just because of the great word of mouth, people really loving this movie genuinely, then that would be so fucking excellent. Worldwide, it still needs $220 million to get there, the first Puss in Boots, but still, Domestically, if it can at least do that, that would be really special for me. But speaking of the worldwide numbers, it is now sitting at $334 million. So it has outgrossed Turbo by $48 million, B-Movie by $47 million, $38 million over Rise of the Guardians, and $13 million over Megamind. And now it needs $9 million to outgross Trolls and Over the Hedge, you know, sitting at like the same number of 343. That's great. You know, I'm just, you will be seeing those movies be outgrossed next. You're going to see it outgross Kung Fu Panda 3 domestically. You're going to see it outgross the first Puss in Boots next weekend. And worldwide, you are going to see it outgross Trolls and Over the Hedge. That's really fun. That's just really exciting. Once again, I can't stop singing the praises of a film. That's great. Let's move on to number 3, which I'm going to sing the praises of a little bit at least. A Man Called Otto, which, you know, is genuinely like a really good movie, a solid remake of the original, but is actually having some pretty steady, solid foot traffic at the theater. I'm still waiting for it to double its $50 million budget, and worldwide it is now sitting at $70 million, so it needs $30 million. You don't even need $30 million all in one place, just accumulatively you still need $30 million to double that $50 million budget, but maybe in the next couple weeks we will see that happen. Who knows? But right now it's made $6.7 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $46 million. I wanted to finally, I've been skipping out on doing this and I'm not really sure why, but I wanted to go through Mark Forrester's other films and kind of do a little comparing as far as like what's it outgrossed, what's it still got to go through. So it has outgrossed in Mark Forrester's filmography, just as a director. Monsters Ball by $15 million, Stay by $43 million, Stranger Than Fiction by $6 million, The Kite Runner by $31 million, Machine Gun Preacher by $46 million, and All I See Is You by the same number, and it needs $5 million until it outgrosses Finding Neverland. Worldwide, I mentioned it is now past $70 million, so it has outgrossed Monsters Ball by $27 million, Stay by $66 million, Stranger Than Fiction by $17 million, Machine Gun Preacher by $67 million, and All I See Is You by $70 million, and it needs $4 million until it outgrosses The Kite Runner. So, there you go. As far as Mark Forrester's film, Mark Forrester has a really interesting filmography, if you ever just want to do like a little deep dive through that. So, it's just very interesting to see this movie start to like slowly kind of sneak its way to the top. I don't think, obviously, this movie's not going to have a big boost to get to the point where like Quantum of Solace made that much money. Like, obviously, you know, this movie won't do that. It won't do James Bond numbers, but I'm just really hoping that it is able to double that budget, because it'd just be a really great, you know, kind of personal victory for the filmmakers, for the talent involved, but also for me, who still wants to see, you know, these kind of movies do well at the theater. Not just A Man Called Otto specifically, but just movies with like not $100 million budget, but it's got a larger budget than like $10 million, doing, doing a drama, doing an Oscar hopeful, or doing like a mid-budget action. I just want to see mid-budget do well, I think is what I'm saying. I like seeing this steady foot traffic. At number 4, we have Mithrigan making $6.3 million, adding to a domestic total of $82 million. So, let's do the rundown. For Jason Blum's production company, Blumhouse, it has outgrossed the first Purge movie, not the prequel, by $18 million, The Invisible Man by the same amount, and Halloween Ends by the same amount. It has outgrossed the first Purge, meaning the fourth one, meaning the prequel, by $13 million. It's also outgrossed Insidious: The Last Key by $15 million, The Purge Election Year by $3 million, The Visit by $17 million, and The Purge Anarchy by $11 million, and it needs $1 million until it outgrosses Insidious Chapter 2. For Atomic Monster, it just outgrossed The Conjuring: The Devil Made Me Do It by $17 million, and also Annabelle Comes Home by $8 million, so now it just needs $2 million until it crosses over the first Annabelle's domestic run. Worldwide, it is now sitting at $146 million, so that is $28 million over the run of the election year, Purge election year, $16 million over Halloween Kills, $7 million over The Invisible Man, and $9 million over the first Purge, and $21 million over Happy Death Day, $26 million over Insidious 3, and $4 million over Paranormal Activity 4. And it still needs $15 million until it outgrosses The Black Phone and Insidious 2, which I think, either next weekend or the week after, it will do that. So that is really great. Atomic Monster, it has outgrossed The Curse of La Llorona by $23 million, which is good because Mithrigan is obviously a better movie than that. And it needs $2 million until it outgrosses David F. Sandberg's Lights Out. Really great numbers here, Mithrigan's still killing. I know it's like I think kind of funny in a way just to hear me list all these fucking numbers and names of movies that this movie is outgrossing, but I think it's really cool just to list like, hey, what these are for sure, because these are the movies that have, kind of made money for Blumhouse. These are the ones that have actually kind of stood out over the years, whether they're good or bad, just because they have made money, they've spawned franchises. So I like listing them out and just showing you guys like, yeah, there is still room for some original horror movies out there, especially from Blumhouse. And hopefully they don't fucking run this thing into the ground where it gets tiresome after a movie. You know what I mean? Number 5 is the movie that is a new release, but it wasn't any of the ones that I mentioned last weekend. It was a movie called Pethon. Pethon? I'm so sorry if I mispronounced that, but it made $5.9 million, adding to a domestic total of $8.5 million. Worldwide, it has already gained $47 million on a budget of 225 crore. So, you know me, I'm a fucking idiot, I'm a fucking dumbass. I'm not sure if it's, doubled this budget, the American equivalent to crore. I'm not sure if it's actually doubled that, but you know what? The fact that this is a movie that I have not heard of, and it snuck its way up into the top 5, probably because maybe some word of mouth or it had some fans here in the US, that's really fucking great. Obviously, this is a weekend slow enough where a movie like this can actually shine a little bit, and that's awesome. Number 6 was Missing, making $5.6 million, adding to a domestic total of $17 million, so it has doubled its $7 million budget, and it is $4 million away from tripling it. And it's also $9 million away until it outgrosses the first Searching film, which maybe next weekend it'll get a little closer, or maybe it will actually do it next weekend. Either way, I think it's on the way to outgrow Searching. It's not just going to drop off completely. And I'm just really excited to see that happen because, I really love the first Searching. And I was also really entertained by Missing last weekend. I thought it was a really fun, really good, interesting thriller. And I love the work that's put in by the filmmaking team. And I would love to see more of these movies. And even if they're not like the biggest blockbusters in the world as far as like thrillers, mysteries go, I'm just glad that they do have an audience out there, and over the years people will share these films, Missing and Searching, to new audience members. They'll get hooked, and when they make a new one and put it in theaters, it'll probably gain more of an audience that time around. So good stuff all around. Number 7, we have Plane, making $3.8 million, adding to a domestic total of $25 million, so it has crossed over the threshold of the $25 million initial production budget. Worldwide, it is sitting at $29 million, so still not close to doubling it, getting to the $50 million point, but I don't know, maybe it actually didn't cost as much as we all think, or maybe it'll get a boost, or I don't know, man. I really don't know when it comes to Plane. It outgrossed the Assault on Precinct 13 remake from the same director by $5 million, and it still needs $7 million until it does so worldwide. Maybe it'll do that next weekend, or maybe it'll do it the weekend after. Either way, I think it's on the track to do so. So if this can be the director's highest grossing film, then, that's a personal achievement. I'll give you a round of applause for that. But I am, because I was entertained by this movie, and I thought it was genuinely really decent. So I was kind of hoping that it would double its budget, but I mean, it's seeming like it's dropping off pretty quickly, which is kind of sad. Out of all of the movies that are, surprisingly doing well these past couple weeks, I was hoping Plane would also sneak in there, but you can't get what you wish for all the time. Number 8 is The Wandering Earth 2, another movie that I have not heard of, from China, making $3.0 million. I'm not sure what the budget is on Pethon, but worldwide, it's already sitting at $323 million. So I don't think this movie has to worry too much about whether it's doubled its budget or not. I'm pretty sure if they haven't already, they're going to be on the track to do so. So I don't really have much more to add here. Let's move on to number 9, which is Infinity Pool. Really interesting movie. I was really hoping that it would get a little bit closer to the top 5, even though I didn't think it would crack it, but it's here, you know what I mean? People were more interested in The Wandering Earth 2 and Pethon, which, hey, I can't blame them for, everyone is a fan of something else, Infinity Pool is not for everybody, it's only for me, apparently, because everyone else in the theater was, divided. Some of them are like, I kind of liked it, kind of dug it, was groovy, and then some other people are like, what the fuck was happening? It's that kind of movie, so it doesn't really surprise me. It only made $2.7 million, though, this weekend, and I'm not sure what the budget is, so it's a big bummer regardless, because I'm sure it didn't cost $1 million. I can't say they already doubled that budget, you know what I mean? You have Mia Goth and Alexander Skarsgård and, so much other kind of horror movie, work put into this. I don't want to spoil too much of what this movie is because I didn't really fully know what the movie was about going in. I just saw a weird trailer and I was like, I'm fucking in, But yeah, I was hoping for a bigger boost, but obviously it's not for everybody, so I'm not too, upset about this. It's kind of expected. And finally, closing out the video, number 10, Left Behind, Rise of the Antichrist, making $2.3 million. Not sure what the budget is, but since Kevin Sorbo is in it, I'm going to assume the budget is low. Real low. So maybe they already doubled their budget. Who fucking knows? I'm not talking about this movie ever, or any of the movies ever again. I'm never talking about a Kevin Sorbo movie ever again. Now it's time for the fun part, the predictions for next week's top 5. Number 1, I will not predict Avatar. I think Avatar will be knocked out of the top spot by Knock at the Cabin. M. Night Shyamalan has always proven that he has a fan base out there. People are always interested in his movies. This will get number 1. Number 2 might be a bit of a stretch, but I think just out of a pure meme, I think number 2 will be 80 for Brady. This might be completely wrong. I might be sounding like the biggest fucking idiot on the planet, but god damn it, it would be so fucking funny if 80 for Brady made it into the number 2 spot instead of Avatar. So I'm going with this prediction. And then number 3, I'm going with Avatar: The Way of Water. Number 4, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. And number 5, A Man Called Otto. But what are your predictions for next week's top 5? Leave them in the comments below. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.